I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
What's up, guys? Leyton here for UFC Gambling Addicts. Back again with a great card, UFC 241. Really good pay-per-view. It is season 2 now of this channel, and that means we've basically been going for a whole year. For a whole year, we've tracked our picks, and we've spoken about over 500 fights. So 504 fights in the last 12 months, and now we're on to season 2. As always, the giveaway is available, so follow the instructions or leave a comment if you're confused how to join the giveaway. And yeah, smack a like if you appreciate us, and catch you in the comments. Peace.
And welcome to episode 42 of UFC Addicts, and welcome to season 2 of UFC Addicts. My name is Aaron, and as always, I'm here with my co-host Leyton, and we are here to break down the latest UFC card, this being UFC 241, Cormier versus Stipe Miocic 2. The rematch finally happening. Before I pass it over to Leyton here, UFC 42 took place. UFC 42, subtitled "Sudden Impact," took place in Miami, Florida. And Matt Hughes took on Sean Shirk in the main event and won. The co-main event, Pete Spratt submitted Robbie Lawler in round 2. So a little bit of a throwback there, but and that was in 2003 that Robbie Lawler lost that fight.
Wow.
So he is still going. But as always, here's my co-host Leyton, the reigning and now defending season 1 champion. I'll let you go ahead and give the details and a little bit of an intro. But what up, buddy?
What's up, bro? Okay, so season 1's done, and for anyone that even understands or cares about what we're saying, the last 41 events we've covered has been 12 months, so that's been 504 fights. I got 310 out of those 504. You got 298. So over 41 events a whole year. To say that we're only 12 away from each other, that's pretty decent. Like, I know, like, you're not happy to be finishing in second place, but to say that you've covered 41 of the last 41 events and it's only 12 away, in my mind, that's pretty decent. So yeah, I'm reigning defending champ. No one cares. Only me and you care. Yeah, a great pay-per-view here. A rematch that, you know, everyone's talking about. Taking a look at the last card, what did we have? Oh yeah, okay, Valentina versus Liz Carmouche. Wow, what a sleeper. I mean, you know, I don't like
Not
women,
in a good way. Not in a good way.
Yeah, I don't like women main events anyway, but you know, it's fair because she's a champion. But to say that she couldn't finish Liz Carmouche, that's maybe why she's never going to be talked about like Ronda Rousey. You know, Ronda Rousey armbar Liz Carmouche, and Valentina's happy to go 25 minutes. So credit to her. It was dominant, but it was boring, wasn't it, mate? Let's be honest.
So, I mean, I don't exactly agree with that. The GOAT talk aspect of it, I do agree it was boring. I mean, Carmouche did everything she could not to get hit, including doing no offense herself. I think this fight really reminds a lot of people of like Damian Maia and Anderson Silva. And a lot of this talk after the fight reminds me of that, because after Anderson did that in Abu Dhabi with Damian Maia and his fight with Talis Latis, everybody was just like, oh, this is why Anderson's not George St. Pierre, never going to be great, and all that. I mean, so I don't know about all that. Just to go back to the season that no one cares about, 504 fights we talked about. That isn't including the Contender Series, which is a whole other story, and stay tuned for that. I'll go into that on that video. But we've talked about more than 500 fights. If you've been here from the beginning, then you've listened to hopefully a fair amount of those, and we appreciate everybody, whether you've listened once or every time or whatever. Whether you're listening, you listen to this, you're one of the 2 dislikes we have, since I can't really describe discuss too many other dislikes, whatever it is. But 504 fights. The co-main event also was incredible with Luque and Perry.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
I will not disrespect Mike Perry. I had always realized he was tough before that fight, but I don't know how he didn't tap that guillotine at the end, getting your broken nose smashed against someone's rib cage as you're getting choked, as the blood's pouring out of your face. I mean, there are not many times that I watch fights, even with cuts or blood, where my jaw is dropped.
Gruesome. It was gruesome.
And then when he got up, I mean, it was hard to look at. Mike Perry is a warrior. So is Vicente Luque. That would be how Luque would get a decision, by smashing a guy's face in and him somehow just being able to survive, being tougher than all toughness. So other than that, pretty good card, top to bottom. Betting wise, I had a better night than you, but that happens at times. And I'm excited to start season 2 here. I feel renewed. I feel freshened. We started on James Vick and Justin Gaethje. And now we are starting season 2 on a much better fight, and I hope we start season 3 on an even better fight, which, who knows what that could be, but we're on season 2 now. It'd be fair to predict, I think we'll have more than 504 fights this season. But my goal is obviously to beat my score from last season. So I want to continue to pick over 50%, and I'd love to get over 300 fight picks. You're the champion. I'm sure your goal is just to continue to be dominant and awesome. So
thank you.
I'm ready to jump in. And
just before we jump in, as reigning defending champion, I don't want to see more than 4 disagreements a card right now. So any more than 4, I'm going to get a little bit scared. So if we can, as reigning defending champ, I want to see, maybe 3 disagreements. But as always, I'm going to make my picks.
I can't help you with that. But, we'll see here. And, just all I got to say is that it is the end of summer here in Washington, D.C. I have some dogs here. If we have to, we may have to pause, and I may have to take care of them for a moment. But I'm hoping they'll just be chill. But Chico and Cruz says, what's up? And I'm ready to jump in. How about you?
Let's do it, bro. Let's do it.
Excellent. And so I'll go ahead and have you lead us off here to start off the card.
Yep, and this is going to be Sabina Mazo versus Shana Dobson. Is the first fight of the night. Interesting fight. Shana Dobson comes into this fight 1-1 inside the UFC. She's primarily a boxer from what we've seen. But to be fair to her, you look at the fight against Lauren Muller and she looked quite strong in the clinch. So it's a little bit harsh to just label her as a boxer, but most of her attack is just boxing. She does throw the kicks as well. But she's mainly looking to just, outbox you. She's got quite a bit of power in her hands. Looking at Sabina Mazo, her debut against Marina Moroz, whatever her name is, she has insane boxing credentials for her time in the Ukraine. So to see Sabina Mazo pieced up like that, it wasn't too surprising for me. I did take Moroz in that fight. So yeah, Shana Dobson is a boxer as well, but nowhere near the credentials of Moroz. So I do see Dobson landing those shots, but I expect Mazo to have a much better performance here. She uses a lot of high kicks, body kicks, calf kicks, and hopefully improved boxing from Mazo. So yeah, I didn't take her in her debut, but I will take her here. So I'll take Mazo via decision.
All right, I will be breaking down Sabina, not Sabrina, Mazo or Mazo, whatever you want to say. The 22-year-old, 5'7", 125er. She's 6-1, 0-1 in the UFC, losing to Iron Lady Moroz by decision, in which she just wasn't very active. She's been inactive before this as well, but against the lower competition, she got away with it. A few single kicks would be effective and be able to put away opponents. So I kind of think that it's Comes down to if Mazo wants to use her ground and Muay Thai credentials, and that includes being a little more offensive. I think Dobson comes out and looks to put pressure on, throw more strikes, throw a higher volume of strikes. And I think Sabina maybe looks to build up more and throw maybe more single shots, which if they don't get through, I'm not sure how effective it is. So with Dobson, I think that she's still, I believe, she's not full-time MMA. So I think a lot of what we're seeing with Dobson is that she's been labeled as a boxer, as that was her first kind of method that she was comfortable in, but she's pretty green in MMA. So each fight she really could come in and show, wow, she seems to really know how to use the clinch now. She seems to know how to use a whizzer now. She seems to know, I mean, she's really learning with each fight here. And I don't know. I actually think that the pressure is going to be the difference. And I'll take Dobson to get a decision, but this is a who the fuck knows fight. It's a lower level MMA women's fight. And I think it's appropriate we start off season 2 with a disagreement on a low-level women's MMA fight, which I think I'm currently on a 3-fight low women MMA fight disagreement streak. So
I hate disagreeing on women fights, mate. I really do, but
I'm not happy to disagree on this one. I will show you my notes after this that I did have Dobson before
That's
Mazo.
fine, mate.
I will make
on it.
Yeah, I will. Well, before I'm done here, I will make a commitment to everybody out there that we're never going to listen to one person's pick and go against it just for
no way.
I'm at least not going to do that, and I don't think that there's a doubt that you won't do that.
Oh, no way, mate. No way.
But we get to the odds here, and Mazo is the underdog at plus 110. Shayna Dobson at minus 140. The odds open. I'm going to also start mentioning what odds are opening at because I find that interesting. Odds open for Sabina as almost a minus 2 favorite, minus 190 favorite.
Yeah, that's insane. I'd say the odds are pretty legit where they are now. I mean, you look at Mazo's debut, and it's just her boxing was nowhere near good enough, and those kicks that she was dropping girls with just didn't happen, and she was grappled. That could be the outcome here. Like we both said, Dobson primarily a boxer, but you look at her in the clinch with Laura Muller, and she hung in there. So it's a fair disagreement. I'm not happy with it, but fair play.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it, but whoever gets the early lead here in season 2 should feel very happy. So congratulations to Sabina Mazo and Shayna Dobson. You are the first fight on season 2. Let's go, Shayna. Let's go, Shayna. I think she's a teacher, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe.
I believe she is, but I'll figure it out if she wins this fight. So moving on to the next fight. That was at flyweight, by the way, women's flyweight. Moving on to the next fight here at men's bantamweight. I'm going to start saying the gender of the weight class too, apparently. Ho Kang versus Killer B, not Killer B, Brandon Davis. I will be breaking down, I believe, Killer B, Brandon Davis, and he is 10-6 now, out of Starkville, Mississippi, where he trains at Alan Belcher MMA Club. Alan Belcher, always going to be one of my favorite OGs, or not OGs, but OGs from when I first started watching. Brandon Davis is 2-3 in the UFC, winner on Dana White's Contender Series, so take that shot of the apple juice. He came in on about 2 weeks' notice against Sabit, and then he returned to bantamweight and got a much more appropriate matchup and was really dominant, albeit against a 4-0 guy in Costa, I believe Kyle Costa. And he did what he needed to do in that fight, Davis did. So I'll give him credit there. Props to him for, I think, doing doing more than just surviving against Sabit. I think he really was kind of pushing him until that banana split at the end of the fight. I think that this matchup with Ho Kang is a really good matchup of very differing styles. Davis is a little more reckless and aggressive in a lot of areas, but not necessarily more effective. I think he's a tough guy, but I just don't think he gets past the technical abilities of Kang here. I'll take Kang to get the submission in round 2. I just think that he'll be the more composed guy and better, a little bit better in each area. So I'll take Mr. Perfect Ho Kang by submission in round 2.
Okay. Mr. Perfect, Kang, comes into this fight 4 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw inside the UFC. He's a good wrestler, like you said, a good submission artist. He has one of the best submission wins I've ever seen, in all honesty. He had a triangle choke in the air against Kenney, holding on to that triangle, and he was able to get that choke. Half of it in the air, like I said. It was a crazy submission. Looking at this fight on the feet, I think both guys are going to be fairly matched on the feet. Brandon Davis kind of walks forward, quite reckless, like you said. Has that gangster style to him. Kang on the feet, you know, he's not really looking to be there. He does want to take you down and submit you. Davis has good jiu-jitsu as well. I like his jiu-jitsu. I think he's able to compete with the scrambling and attempting chokes like Kang. But Kang, you know, is going to be more technical when it comes to grappling, so that could be the difference. But like I said, Davis has very good jiu-jitsu himself and good scrambles. And on the feet, you know, I think it's very much 50-50 on the feet. It's a tough one to pick on, but I'm gonna take Brandon Davis here. I think he's just a bit of a gangster on the feet, and I rewatched Kang versus Ricardo Ramos earlier, and Kang was really, really patient on the feet, man, and he was not scoring there. So maybe if Kang is more offensive here, or finds the big shot against a reckless guy, fair enough. But for the most part, I think they're very matched in most areas, but the wrestling could be the difference. So yeah, I'll take Davis via decision. All
right. We started out season 2 with 2 disagreements. So Ho Kang is the favorite at -185, plus 150 for Brandon Davis.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, man. I'm fine. It could be a little bit closer. Maybe drops a little bit for Davis. But -185 for Kang, a little bit deep. Maybe like 1 or 2 parlays the most.
That's how it's open. So it stayed right at that price.
Yeah,
so far.
It's not too bad. I agree with most of it.
Yep. So 2 underdogs by you to open up the season. That's totally fair.
There we go.
And it moves us on to... Okay, let's make this quick. Fight number 3 at strawweight between Jodie Esquibel and Hannah Cifers. I will be breaking down Hannah Cifers. Hannah Cifers, 27, 5'2", 9-3. Beat Polyana Viana. I flipped the coin. It landed on tails for Cifers. Cifers by decision. Go ahead.
Okay, Jodie Esquibel comes into this fight 0-3 inside the UFC. Pretty much dominated in all of her fights. She's been quite disappointing. I could pretty much say the same for Hannah Cifers, quite disappointing. You know, you look at this fight, man, and there's not really a difference. I think Jodie Esquibel is maybe a better boxer. That's her foundation. Then you look at Hannah Cifers and maybe a bit more of a Muay Thai style. She's going to throw body kicks and leg kicks. But her hands, you know, not really great.
I've heard Hannah Cifers called a hard hitter by a person multiple times.
Yeah,
and I laughed each time.
I just don't see that. I know she dropped Viana, but you look at Viana's hands and they're terrible in herself. So she relies just on her jiu-jitsu, Viana, and it wasn't the difference. You know, she relied on her jiu-jitsu against Macedo and it backfired. So you look at Hannah Cifers here, she's just going to try and, you know, hit Jodie Esquibel with what she's got, and Jodie's going to try and box up Hannah Cifers. That's what's going to happen here. One thing I will say, Hannah Cifers is 1-2. If she loses, she becomes 1-3. Viana was 1-2. She lost, she became 1-3. Macedo became 1-3 after being 0-3. Jodie Esquibel is 0-3. I think all 4 ladies could be 1-3. So yeah, I'm going to take Jodie Esquibel to get her first win inside the UFC by landing more significant strikes with her hands.
Well, we'll see if we agree in season 2 of the UFC Addicts here, because you are taking your 3rd straight underdog, sir.
There we go.
This is your largest underdog at plus 226 for Jodie Esquibel.
That's
minus
crazy.
Minus 255 for Hannah Cifers.
I'm all over that. I'm over that. 2 parlays for Jodie Esquibel.
Joy. 1 parlay for Hannah Cifers, if that. So,
what was she? Plus 2 what?
250 plus 230 plus 2
230 did you say?
225.
That's wow. Wow.
I mean, enjoy. Go ahead and enjoy betting on Jodie Esquibel.
Yeah.
She's all yours, my friend.
That's crazy.
And maybe just yours. So go ahead. Let's move on. Go ahead. You can lead us into this next fight. Much better fight.
Yes, it's at bantamweight 135. We have Manny Bermudez versus Kenney, and I'll be breaking down Kenney. Comes into this fight 1-0 inside the UFC. Competed on the Contender Series twice. He's got a clean record of 4-0 in LFA. And his performance in his debut, man, you have to look at it and give him credit, you know. When a guy can keep up with Ray Borg, scramble with Ray Borg, and just compete for 15 minutes, you have to take note of that. And the note has to be, this guy has a strong will. There's no other way of saying it. If you keep up with Ray Borg at Ray Borg's game, you have a strong will. Now, I see this being another grappling contest. The only difference here is Manny Bermudez is much, much bigger than Ray Borg. He's much, much stronger than Ray Borg and has much better jiu-jitsu than Ray Borg. Those 3 things could be the difference here. And that's why I'm going to take Manny Bermudez to submit Kenney. And I'll take it in round number 1.
Okay. I will be breaking down the Bermudez triangle. Manny B. 14-0, 1 TKO, 11 submissions, 3-0 in the UFC, with 3 submissions, 2 of which coming in round 1. He's definitely what the UFC would consider a specialist. If he gets you down, he's going to submit you. That's according to all of his fights so far, and pretty much been the case his whole career. While he's continued to use what works for him, he's definitely been working on his stand-up. I showed flashes of that in that 1-minute submission of Davey Grant where he absolutely dropped him. And the one place he definitely has struggled at times is on the scale. So he is by far the biggest bantamweight in the UFC. Not quite sure how he does it. I've seen him in person when he's not on weight, and he's gigantic. I anticipate he's been properly prepped for this cut. I follow him on Instagram. It seems like it's going smooth. He's been planning it for about 2 months out of fight day, so that's good. I think he's got way better boxing also than a lot of people give him credit for, and I think he can use it in this fight. I respect what Kenney did in his debut. I wasn't blown away by it. And he's going from the smallest, or one of the smallest bantamweights to the biggest bantamweight. So I think Bermudez is longer, he's stronger, and he's better than anybody Kenney's faced. And I think he's one of the best guys in bantamweight. And he's going to get another round 1 submission. So I really think that this kid's the real deal. And I think he's motivated to get in there and get out of there. I think he's trying to get on the Boston card in October, as Manny is from Boston. And I don't think he's looking ahead, but I think he's very interested in the path of least resistance in this fight and not looking to maybe necessarily show the well-roundedness or something in this fight. I think he looks to get to the ground and successful. So we finally agree. It took 4 fights into season 2, but Manny Bermudez is the favorite, minus 125, minus 105 for Kenney. I don't understand it, and I will say I think these odds are just incorrect.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest with you, mate. I agree with everything you just said, and I think minus 125 is insane. Like, that's a really, really good price from Manny Bermudez.
Yeah, he opened at minus 120, so it's only shifted a little bit further towards Manny, and I will be all over that after this, after we're done with this breakdown, because I think he is a -2 or better favorite.
Yeah.
Handily.
So a little bit of faith going into Manny Bermudez to make him a favorite, but not a lot of faith to make him a decent favorite.
I think he fights so infrequently because, at least according to him, everybody he tries to get a fight with is turning it down. And I believe that. I'm not saying
he's a big guy.
Yeah, so he's infrequently fighting. So the the short-term memory of MMA fans is abysmal, and that's all I can guess is that they see. I just think those odds are incorrect. So
it's a good parlay builder.
I will. Yeah, he is definitely my parlay builder. He's going to be in. If he loses, my night is going to be definitely in the negative, probably. But I mean, I'm very confident in that fight, and I don't understand those odds. So
I'm with you.
Let's go ahead and move forward.
Do you want to do it or me?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead. And we're at lightweight between Christos Giagos and Drakkar Klose, or Klose, whichever you prefer. I will be breaking down Drakkar Klose, the MMA Lab representative, so one of my favorite camps here. Is 10-1 overall, 4 TKOs, 3-1 in the UFC, has wins over Lando Venata, Mark Diacasey, and Bobby Green, and a loss to David Tamer. So, I mean, that's a head scratcher. Of those four, would not guess that David Tamer would be the one to win, but fair enough. He has gone the distance in all 4 of these appearances, and they have been decent competition. Drakkar, solid fighter everywhere, but I think really has yet to completely been able to showcase his skills inside there. I'd say the fight before his last against Lando was the best he'd looked. He had another very close matchup with Green, was way too easy to grab and get a hold of for my likings against Green, and I think maybe he was just a little overconfident as he had previously trained with Green, and Green had been in the twilight of his career. But I think that Klose needs to mix it up in this matchup, keep Giagos guessing on the feet, and I think he will. I see Klose using a lot of crisp striking and finally getting a finish. I don't expect Giagos to look as good as he looked in his last fight. Green was as tough as they came, but sometimes quits in there, and he didn't against Klose, so that's a little bit of a scary sign for me, but I think Klose uses a lot more movement here and implements a lot of leg kicks, and so I'll take Klose to get a TKO in round number 3.
Nice. Okay, Christos Giagos comes into this fight 3-3 inside the UFC. If I'm talking about this guy for his first 5 fights, there wouldn't be great things to say, but if we're speaking about this guy from his last fight, once again, you have to give this guy massive credit. He pretty much dominated a guy who was looking, to climb the ladder. He was looking pretty good, on a bit of a tear, you could say. And he dominated him, man. He absolutely dominated Hadzovic. He took him down at will. He got takedowns every round. And even on the feet, man, he was looking very, very good. You even said yourself, Giagos looks like Dustin Poirier in there. And he really did. He looked like him. He fought like him. We have to give him credit in that last fight. If you're looking at the 5 fights before, you're probably not saying much. But that last fight was very, very decent. It's a good fight. Drakkar Klose is a very good kickboxer. Also a very decent wrestler himself. So you're looking at this fight going, if Giagos is able to get those takedowns every round, then maybe it's enough. But Klose is a very good wrestler himself, and maybe a better kickboxer. So I'm basically seeing the same thing as you. But I'm going to take a decision here. I'll take Drakkar Klose via decision.
Okay. Drakkar is the favorite, minus 200, plus 180, or plus 160 for Giagos. So
that's fine. I'm with that. Maybe a tiny little bit deep, considering Green was able to hold him against the fence for a few minutes. But yeah, -2, it isn't the worst, not the best.
Yeah, and 6 fights in the octagon, he's only looked the way he looked one time. It was his last fight, so maybe he's figured it out, but I'm not betting it. So I am fine with the odds. That's what they opened at, too, so they pretty much stayed where they're at. And we are on to the bantamweight division now, and this is a matchup between Rafael Assuncao and Corey Sandhagen. I'll be breaking down Rafael Assuncao, the now 36-year-old, is 27-6. He's got 4 TKOs and 10 submissions. He's 11-3 in the UFC now, coming off of that last loss to Marias by submission, which a lot of people, including myself, were surprised that's how it came, even if we were picking Marias. So he's basically, Assuncao fought the who's who of fighters at 135, has wins over Font, had a previous win over Marias by split, had a split win over Dillashaw, beat Pedro Munoz, beat Brian Caraway, beat Aljamain Sterling, and on and on. He lost his debut at 145 and a rematch to Dillashaw, both by decision, but still, this guy, he's pretty good everywhere. He's really good, strong mental fighter, good game plan. I think that he's just he's had a lot of fights. He's 36 years old. He's dealt with some pretty major injuries in between there as well. I think he's gotten a little bit worn down. And I think Corey is fighting him at the right time in Assuncao's career, and Assuncao is fighting Corey at the wrong time in his career. So I think they're going very different trajectories. And I'll take Corey Sandhagen to use his length, use his footwork, and keep the advantage and keep it at a distance here. I think he may put him away, but I'll give Assuncao his toughness a little bit of credit here and give Corey Sandhagen a decision win. So, but nice. A fairly one-sided decision for Corey Sandhagen.
Decent. Okay, Corey Sandhagen comes into this fight 4-0 inside the UFC. He's one of my boys. I'll make it clear, as we always do. He's one of my favourite fighters. I was at his debut in North Carolina. He completely destroyed Austin Arnett. Vicious body shots, just looked so good. And then he decided to cut down to 135, and I love that move. He is a monster at 135. He's very tall, very long for the weight class. And you just look at his fights at 135, man. Against Alcantara, he refused to tap, got the win. And then you look at the way he finished Mario Batista with that armbar, and you're just like, what the hell? Like, that was so impressive. And then I took him against John Lineker, and you look at the way he just used that unorthodox style, and he basically danced around John Lineker, just hitting him with combinations. I know some people have that fight going for Lineker, but I betted on Sandhagen, and what I saw from Sandhagen really impressed me. I said it before that breakdown, this guy reminds me of Dominic Cruz, and I'll say it again. I think this guy could be the next Dom Cruz. He looks like him so much. He's just taller and longer. And when you see him getting that armbar finish, man, that really has me believing that this guy could be something special in the UFC. But like I said, he's one of my favourite fighters, so maybe a little bit of emotion going into it, but, I'm not afraid to hide that. I really like this guy. I'll be honest, man, he's fighting a vet. Rafael Assuncao is a vet, and he's a very tough guy. But like you said, Brooks, he's 37 now. He's declining quite a bit. And if you look at the high Sandhagen's on, I just have to go with that. So I'll take Corey Sandhagen, the same as you, via decision.
Yeah, and he is not as again. I love I know we're not at the end or anything, but doubling up Bermudez and Sandhagen for me, because Sandhagen's only a minus 165 favorite, plus 130 nice. For Assuncao. So I think the two of them together should get you into plus money. Mm-hmm. So I would do Bermudez and Sandhagen double up. I think both inside the distance wouldn't be a terrible bet. I know I picked Sandhagen by decision, but Assuncao's taken a lot of damage. He has a lot of damage from training injuries as well. So, and he's 36 in a division that has more finishes than, the division above it in featherweight. So bantamweight is a dangerous division, and Sandhagen is just going to be that's going to be one of those weigh-ins where people are taking the screenshot and showing it to their friends and being like, can you believe these guys are the same weight class?
That's a featherweight fighting at bantamweight, mate. I'm telling you. And I said that. I said, this is going to be a featherweight fighting a flyweight in John Lineker. And that's what we saw. That's what we saw. He's a power puncher, Lineker, but for the most part, man, Sandhagen looked great.
Yeah,
okay.
So if Assuncao wins this, he's right back somehow into the thick of things at the top of that division. That would be pretty amazing at this point.
For sure.
So go ahead and lead us in.
Moving on into the last fight of the prelims. This is Devontae Smith versus Clay Collard. And I'll be breaking down Devontae. Comes into this fight 2-0 inside the UFC. And so far, man, I'm very impressed with this guy. I believe his debut, I'm not too sure, you may correct me on this. His debut was against Julian Erosa?
Correct.
Yeah, that was a really impressive knockout. But the second fight, that impressed me more because it wasn't a quick knockout and we saw more. We saw more from Devontae. And what we saw was a very calculated guy. Ma was being very defensive in that fight. You know, he wasn't throwing hardly anything. He was just watching and reading. And what we saw from Devontae was just a very intelligent, calculated guy. He didn't overcommit. He didn't do anything crazy. He didn't try to get a quick finish. He was patient. He picked his shots. And when he hurt Ma, that's when he exploded. So what I learned from Devontae Smith was he's intelligent, calculated, and he isn't in there to just finish you straight away. He's being patient, calm and collected. So an example would be Adesanya. When we see him debut and then we see the next fight against Marvin Vettori, we learn. You have to learn from these guys as they go through when they're very early in their UFC career. So that's what I learned from Devontae Smith in his last fight. And I was very impressed before that with his debut. So yeah, I'm not going to go against him here against Clay. I think he's miles ahead of him. So I'll take Devontae Smith via TKO in round number 1.
All right, that would be his third straight first round TKO. So Cassius Clay Collard, I'll be breaking down. He's 18-8 overall. If you remember the name Clay Collard, he was in the UFC previously. He went 1-3 in his first stint, really not facing anybody of too much note. Lost his last 2 fights have been boxing bouts. He had a draw in one, and he won a split decision in the other one back in June. So he definitely goes in there and looks to mix things up on the feet in his MMA fights. Uses some wrestling at times, takes a lot of shots while giving some out also. His last loss in MMA was to Derek Minner, who we just lost on the Contenders Series, and we saw kind of the level he's at. I think Clay comes in. He'll be very confident in his stand-up. He calls himself Cassius Clay, after all. So, he believes he can take a shot to give one. I do think the gas tank is where Clay has some favors. So if he starts standing after the first, if he starts standing after the first of using a lot of grappling, I do think he can eke out a decision actually. But I think that Clay was on his way to the LFA before getting signed on short notice here after McDessie got injured. And I think Devontae Smith could catch him in round 1 and be sending him back there really quickly and with less brain cells. So I agree with you. I'll take Devontae by first round TKO. Yeah, we'll see if it lasts longer than Dong Yao Ma. Nice. But the odds are pretty nuts. Minus 700 for Devontae Smith. Minus 850 on Bovada.
What did they open? Is that what they opened?
It opened at minus 750.
Wow.
Plus 525 for Clay Collard. I can't agree with those odds.
That's a Contender Series line. Like, wow.
Yeah, I think it should be half that.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say TKO only, but we had Garnet get a sub, so that was 20-1 sub. So don't even do TKO only on Devontae. Just fade it. That line is insane.
Yeah, you can't even touch it unless, like, if you got a feeling about Clay, go ahead, man.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you got a hunch, if it's something, like, throw it at Clay at plus 560 on some places.
It's insane, mate. Okay, moving on.
That's shocking. Some of these odds are shocking.
Yeah, this is the start of the main card. We have Derek Brunson versus Ian Heinisch, and I'll be breaking down Ian. Comes into this fight 2-0 inside the UFC. And we all have to be pleased for this guy. You have to give this guy credit. He's had a tough life, and now he's in the big time, 2-0 inside the UFC. You know, he's having a great time. You look at both of those fights, and two Brazilians, Cesar Ferreira and Shoeface, two Brazilians tried to grapple this guy, and he made them work. He is a strong grappler, a very good wrestler. And if you try and grapple him, apparently you're going to end up tired, and he's going to finish you or just win the fight. So, you know, I'm looking at this fight. Derek Brunson has very, very decent takedown defense. You know, Derek's probably going to try keep it on the feet, I'd imagine. You know, I took Derek Brunson against Elias, man, and I understood the game plan. It was a good game plan. He executed it, but I was disappointed. You know, I was actually disappointed. He got takedowns, didn't do much with it. Elias was just being Elias on the feet. He was very tired in the second and third. Derek Brunson, surprisingly, very tired too, but just no killer instinct on the feet anymore. Like, even against Adesanya, man, he really tried that aggressive approach and it just didn't work. And then he tried a very calm, collected, cool approach against Elias, and it worked. It did work, but for the most part, I was watching it with money on Brunson, just going, well, you're winning the fight, but, you know, it's not impressive. It didn't impress me. And Ian Heinisch has only impressed me, man. He's a good wrestler, strong grappler. And when the fight isn't in a grappling exchange, he has power, man. He has power in his hands. So, yeah, I'm going to take Ian Heinisch to tire out Derek Brunson and TKO him in the second round.
Okay. I'll be breaking down the 35-year-old Derek Brunson, 19-7 overall, 11 TKOs, 3 submissions, 10-5 in the UFC. He was on a 2-fight losing streak, getting TKO'd by Stylebender and Jacare inside of a round before beating Elias by unanimous decision in Canada, which I do think is notable. I think that is somewhat impressive, although the fight was, I agree, pretty lackluster. I think with Brunson, when he's at his best, he's going in there and not doing a lot of thinking, unfortunately. You know, and I say unfortunately because I think that keeps him from beating a certain tier of fighters. And when he has to adjust and try to fight more technical, more tactics, like against someone like Elias, we see a not very impressive performance where it's like, yeah, you're winning, but you kind of don't look like this is who you are. And so while we know what we want to see out of Derek Brunson, I don't know if he knows what he wants to see out of Derek Brunson. So if I'm seeing things. Yeah, if I'm seeing what I want to, what I am anticipating in this fight, what I'm seeing is a lot of forward action from Brunson, because if he's not moving forward on Heinisch, Heinisch is moving forward on him. So I think Brunson needs to be a little bit reckless in this one. I think he's surprisingly effective with that. I mean, we can't forget he's put out guys like Machida. I get it happened a long time ago, but he's put out guys like Machida. He's put out guys like Uriah Hall. I mean, he's put out guys with much better stand-up than someone like Heinisch. I really think this is a really interesting matchup with Heinisch. I can't remember ever seeing a straight pressure wrestler like Heinisch go against Brunson. So we're not really sure how Brunson reacts to that, and I'm not sure Brunson or Heinisch has seen that either. I'm not sure. I think that Heinisch may put on a clinic with his wrestling and cardio in this one. It'd be really great for Brunson to remember he's a wrestler also, and not just remember, but be effective in it, because we don't exactly know how good Heinisch's defense is. And a few times he has gone down, one of which was against Marcus Perez in LFA, and Marcus Perez put him away with an arm triangle very quickly. So I don't expect Brunson to get a submission here. No, I don't. But his ground and pound's legit. His stand-up has a lot of power. I don't know. I think this is a super close fight. But I'm going to take Ian Heinisch to use the wrestling and clinching more effectively. But I'm back and forth, and this is a really important fight for Derek Brunson. Like, this is a really important fight for him if he wants to remain somewhat relevant as going to be 36 by the time this next fight comes around. So I'll take Heinisch by wrestling and clinch to get a decision win, but this one's close in my opinion.
Nice. And the odds?
The odds, I mean, these odds are the same as the odds for Corey Sandhagen versus Assuncao. Minus 165 for Heinisch, plus 135 for Brunson.
Yeah,
I think it should be closer.
Yeah, it could be a little bit closer. It's
right.
fair for the most part, but minus 160 on Ian Heinisch, you know, yeah, it could be a little closer.
He's a better favorite than Bermudez versus Casey Kenney. I don't understand.
That's insane.
I don't understand. Anyways, I'll move us on to the next fight here on the main card. And this is coming at 145 between Gabriel Magli Benitez and Super Sadiq Yusuff. I will be breaking down Super Sadiq as soon as I find him on my notes here. 1 second. All right, Super Sadiq. 25 years old, 5'9", 9-1 overall with 5 TKOs. 2-0 in the UFC. Had an outstanding first-round KO of fellow fighter Suman Mokantarian. Finally got that name right, in which I picked Suman Mokantarian, and he has not fought since that fight, by the way, Suman. So I've noticed, buddy, I'm missing you, you know. And but that was and then Sadiq followed that up with a really nice decision win over Marias, not Miguel, but Sergio, or whatever Marias.
Shaman.
I'm blanking on. Shaman, yeah, thank you. I was blanking on his first name. Thank you very much. All right, on Shaman Marias. Sadiq Yusuff, Dana White Contender Series winner, so take a shot of apple juice. He won as a 4-1 underdog on there and looked really, really well, or a 3-1 underdog, I should say. Wrestling is basically where I worry for Yusuff. Yusuff is looking to make fights really exciting, especially on his feet, has good power, and I'm looking forward to him here against Benitez, who has a pretty nasty game himself. Benitez is definitely a traditional Mexican fighter, comes forward, uses his toughness a lot, and I expect this to be an exciting stand-up kickboxing kind of fight with Benitez starting to shoot as he struggles on the feet, but I think Sadiq is going to be too strong and fast for it, so I look for Sadiq to avoid the wrestling and cruise to a unanimous decision. So I'll take Sadiq by decision in pretty much a kickboxing bout. Nice.
Okay, Gabriel Benitez comes into this fight 5-2 inside the UFC. He's a pretty good guy at 145. Hasn't really got much of a ground game. Likes to keep it on the feet. Mainly circles on the outside. Uses the calf kick. Uses some decent jabs. He's quite technical, man. You look at the fight against Jason Knight. I rewatched that earlier, and Jason Knight, I remember him actually biting Gabriel Benitez. He actually bit him at one point, which was just hilarious. You could have made the call then that Jason Knight would have ended up in bare knuckle.
Yep.
So yeah, Gabriel Benitez, you know, he's a good fighter, man. He's a good 145er. He's tall. He's long for the division. He just looks to go technique for technique. I basically see the same fight as you. I believe Benitez will be Benitez on the outside using the calf kicks. And if we see that, I expect Yusuff to teach him a lesson or two about calf kicks, because he has a very vicious calf kick himself. And you know what? He's just been impressive. Yusuff has just been impressive, man. You look at all of his fights in the UFC, and he's a good guy, man. He's competing on the feet, and he's winning these kickboxing battles. He's just looking very, very good. If Benitez shoots, I expect the same as you. I think Yusuff stuffs him and just scores on the feet. But I'm going to take him to get a finish here. I think Yusuff has looked very good. He's powerful. He's quick, much quicker than Benitez. And I think that's going to be the difference. So I'm going to take Yusuff via TKO in round number 2.
Okay. Fair enough. So we start with 3 disagreements, and we've been agreeing since.
3 disagreements. I expect 4.
All right, fair enough. And Yusuff is the favorite here, minus 275, plus 245 for Mr. Benitez. That's a little bit wide for me, and I don't think it's that wide of a margin, but it may look like that by the time the fight starts. So we'll see. But
Decent,
okay. As you like to say. Go ahead and lead us into fight number 3.
This is a very, very, very good fight. Yoel Romero versus Paulo Costa.
Why is this not the co-main event?
Because we have Diaz back. That's why.
That's pathetic.
Okay, Paulo Costa comes into this fight 4-0 inside the UFC. He's finishing everyone the way he finished guys before the UFC. He's knocking them out. He's a very technical, accurate power puncher. His boxing is his main attack. He's just looking to land those hands, and apparently if he does, you go down. And he's fighting a guy who is extremely explosive in Yoel Romero. But he is 42 years old now. So if there's going to be a time when someone catches Yoel Romero and he ends up on the floor the way Latifi did, it's probably going to be now. You look at those 2 wars against Whittaker. They were, he took a lot of strikes. But then you look at the other end of the spectrum, and the other end of the spectrum is you see how explosive Yoel Romero is. He is a great, great wrestler. And, you have to look at all of his fights, and you have to just say everyone has been affected. Pretty much everyone has been affected by the explosion. Even Whittaker. Whittaker took a lot of damage in those 2 fights, the knee being the first one. And then you look at the second fight, he was viciously hurt a couple of times. So you have to look at both ends. You have to say, listen, Yoel Romero, you made the point before the podcast, Brooks. You said he's got that money, maybe not the amount that has been said, but he still has a lot of money from that USADA thing. And then you look at, he is hurting everyone. He has hurt everyone he's fought. So it's very hard to say that Paulo Costa is going to TKO Yoel Romero. I feel much more comfortable saying Yoel Romero's going to be Yoel Romero. So it's a very tough fight, man. Both guys are powerhouses. But I'm going to stick with Yoel here. I think you look at the evidence, man. Everyone has been affected by the explosion. And I think maybe Paulo Costa is going to be affected too. So I'll take Yoel Romero to get a TKO in round number 1.
All right. I will be breaking down Yoel Romero, the 42-year-old, 6', 185er, 13-3 overall, 6 TKOs, 9-2 in the UFC. So his only losses being to Bobby Knuckles and 2 absolute classics. The dude's an absolute freak. He's a beast. Been so since entering the UFC. Good wrestling, great stand-up. At times will stall to recover, but I'm okay with that. Honestly, because it's really effective. There just aren't many guys like Romero, which brings us to Paulo Costa. Happens to be a guy who can match Romero in the horsepower department, or at least get close, I think. I anticipate that this will be an absolute war. I hope it will be for however long it goes. What I hope not to see is 2 guys standing in front of each other, feigning, waiting for the other so they can counter. So I don't think that's what we'll see here. I think we'll see a back and forth round 1 and a finish of round 2 by TKO for one of them. I'll say if Paulo can get this, he's going to become the next superstar of Brazil. So it's a lot of most eyes ever been on Paulo Costa, the most pressure he's ever faced, and we can say all these things about this isn't for Romero. He's 42 and everything, but Romero just isn't everybody else. There's no one else like Romero, in my opinion. So I will take Romero to get a second round TKO. So we are going to agree. I wasn't sure on this one, but yep, we do agree. I was a little bit back and forth, but pretty settled on Romero. So Romero is a minus 155 favorite. plus 125 for Costa. I like those odds. I think they should stay right there.
Yeah.
I like the respect for Costa.
I like the respect for Romero too, because a fun fact, I believe like 90%, if not more, Romero has been an underdog in pretty much all of his fights. So to see that is interesting, because Paulo Costa's making statements in all 4 of his UFC fights. So that line is very respectful on both ends, to be honest.
Yeah, these lines have been all over the place, but that was definitely an appropriate line. Speaking of appropriate, this co-main event, not exactly appropriate, but whatever, it's fun. So I'll stop raining on people's parades. It is a matchup between Anthony Showtime Pettis and Nate Diaz.
There we go.
So I'll be breaking down Showtime. The Rufus Sport representative is 22-8. Anthony Pettis, kind of in a weird spot at this point in his UFC career. It was weirder prior to the Wonderboy fight, when he was just taking that fight on a 3-fight losing streak. That prior to that, he was alternating wins and losses over his last 7. So just a whole bunch of weirdness. He had broken his hands against Tony Ferguson. And then he Showtime punches Wonderboy and knocks him out. So now he's sticking to welterweight, and I still kind of wonder why, but I understand a little more now. And I think that he was promised some big fights moving up to welterweight, and he's gotten them. He got a main event shot against Wonderboy Thompson, and now he's getting a co-main event spot on one of the bigger pay-per-views of the year against Nate Diaz. And Nate Diaz's return after, 3 years? So
3 years.
I do think this is a really good matchup, and I think particularly it's a great matchup and opportunity for Anthony Pettis. I think this matchup totally favors Pettis, especially on the feet. I see a lot of leg kicks on Nate Diaz, who puts a ton of weight on that front foot. And if Nate Diaz comes back as this totally revolutionized type of guy, then okay, I gotta give him credit. But I gotta go with what he's been for most of his career, which is throws some good boxing, good jiu-jitsu, doesn't throw a lot of leg kicks, puts a lot of weight on the front legs. So I think Pettis tenderizes the leg and the body for the first 2 rounds, starts to go upstairs in the third, and gets a TKO. So if the opposite happens and Nate Diaz knocks out Anthony Pettis, I'd be a little bit shocked here, to be honest. So
nice.
I have Anthony Pettis by a 3rd round TKO, possibly a decision, but I think Pettis is just the better guy here.
Decent. I agree with literally 100% of what you just said. Nate Diaz comes into this fight, 14 wins, 9 losses inside the UFC, 2-3 at welterweight. And I'm sure everyone listening knows Nate Diaz. We know what this guy's about. He has conditioning levels that are just off the charts. Like you said, very, very good jiu-jitsu. And when he's on the feet, he's looking to come forward, eat whatever you throw, and use his boxing to just out-volume whatever you're doing. So, yeah, I agree with everything you said. Anthony Pettis, he's coming off a huge high. He just competed for the Ninja title. He won the Ninja title like a ninja. He's coming off a massive high. Nate Diaz, man, it is literally 3 years, and 3 years is way too much. Like, how many times has Nate Diaz had his calf brutally kicked in 3 years? How many times can you honestly say Nate Diaz has been kicked in the calf, the body, just even receiving the shots on the elbows, at full power? How many times? We know how durable he is, but I can only picture a Nate Diaz walking back to his corner with blood everywhere. I think Pettis is going to land big shots. He's going to land a lot of calf kicks and body kicks. And if Nate Diaz can just be Nate Diaz after 3 years and just take it all, and now Pettis is tired, now Pettis is getting broken, you have to give Nate Diaz massive credit. He says, I was here before all of these guys, and for sure I'm going to be here after all of these guys. So it's a little bit of strange words, considering he can't really be fighting at 42, or maybe he does, who knows.
Yoel Romero's fighting at 42.
There we go. But you know what? You predicted Anthony Pettis to get a finish, which would be the second ever guy to finish Nate Diaz. And like I said before I started the breakdown, I said I 100% agree with you. I'm going to take a finish too. I think Anthony Pettis goes low, and he's just going to go high like Josh Thompson did, and maybe that's it. So I'm going to take Anthony Pettis to get a TKO in round number 2.
Okay, fair enough. The odds are with us, -130 for Anthony Pettis, -105 for Nate Diaz. I think that's too close. I think it should be around -170 or so, but I'll get it now. I'll take a Pettis, Sandhagen, Bermudez triple.
Yeah, I like it. Well, Nate Diaz, man, he just has a massive fan base. And then you look at the odds against Conor McGregor in that first fight, and you'd have to assume a lot of his fans betted on that. And you saw the odd difference in the second fight. So, you know, a lot of people are fans of Nate Diaz, and that's why his line is so decent. But he has been an underdog, like, at least 12 times in his UFC career. So that's interesting.
Okay. And now we're on to our first main event of Season 2, and it is a fantastic rematch between Stipe Miocic and Daniel D.C. Cormier, the champion. I will be breaking down the challenger, Stipe Miocic, now 36 years old, 6'4", usually in about the 240 range, but he looks bigger for this one, so I'll be interested to see what he weighs in at, but I bet it's close to 260. 18-3 overall, 12-3 in the UFC. He's coming off that devastating loss to DC, where early on it really seemed to be right there with DC and was definitely the bigger guy, stronger guy. Executed pretty well in the clinch, but it was exiting the clinch where he had some trouble. DC capitalized on it early, and then the second time connected and put him out. But Stipe was even able to get DC down a little bit in the wrestling department at one point early in the first round. Really looked pretty comfortable in there with DC before making the air. Since that fight, Stipe has been completely focused on one thing and one thing only. It's getting his belt back. It was getting the rematch. DC, I can't exactly say has been as focused on Stipe. The Brock thing obviously fell through, and I thank God every day for that, because I wasn't going to watch that fight. And DC's now come back to settling on Stipe, and I really hope he's, not just settling. I mean, I hope he's taking it very, very seriously, because if you're just settling for taking Stipe, I think that you could be in some trouble. I think DC has looked so good at heavyweight. His striking's better there. The power is better there. Grappling everywhere is incredible, no matter the weight class. But even at heavyweight, I think it's even more so. I think the key is who maintains forward offensive pressure. I think Stipe will make the adjustments early. He needs early on with regards to tactics. And I think DC can't try to top what he did in the first fight also. There's almost no way he can. So I'm just not sure if Stipe can stop DC in his wrestling for 5 rounds. I think eventually DC gets the back of Stipe and sinks in a rear naked choke. So I'm going to take DC. I get it in rematches a lot of times, especially championship rematches. The loser wins, but I'm going to take DC. I'm going to take him to get the wrestling and the takedowns he needs and get the back in round 4 and rear naked choke win for DC at round 4.
Nice. Okay. Daniel Cormier comes into this fight 11 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. A double champ, one of the best wrestlers we've ever seen, one of the smartest fighters we've ever seen, and truly a great person, a good person. Despite all of the wars of words against John Jones, Daniel Cormier is truly a good person. Now, I have very mixed emotions about this rematch. The first fight they had, I said it out loud. It was before the podcast, Brooks. But I said it, we both said it. We felt Daniel Cormier was going to win that fight. We took Daniel Cormier. The way we envisioned it was different, definitely. So it's very surprising now to see that Daniel Cormier can TKO Stipe Miocic. You know, a few people that week told me that there's no way Daniel Cormier wins. There's such a size difference. Stipe Miocic is a real heavyweight. He's so much more powerful. And I stuck with my gut. We both stuck. We took Daniel Cormier. And he done well. You know, he was like a plus 200. And he done great. But I have very mixed emotions because this time I'm going to take Stipe. And here's why. I think Stipe Miocic, also a very good wrestler. Daniel Cormier, obviously a smarter guy and a better wrestler. But Stipe is a very, very good wrestler himself. Also a very, very good boxer himself. Now, the reason why I'm going to take Stipe this time is just the fact that from the moment he woke up on the canvas with the Brock Lesnar stuff going on and he didn't get interviewed after, then denied a rematch. The fact all of this has happened and he hasn't taken a fight, from the moment he woke up, he's only been thinking about Daniel Cormier. Now, that scares the life out of me because Stipe Miocic, before he got TKO'd, he was looked at as the greatest heavyweight ever. Now we're picturing this fight. We're saying, listen, this is the greatest heavyweight versus the greatest heavyweight. Now, Daniel Cormier only had to do one thing. He outsmarted Stipe in the clinch, and now he's looked at as the greatest heavyweight. Which, you know, it's a little far-fetched to me, but this is a great rematch. I have mixed emotions because I took Daniel Cormier the first time. But I think, you know, he's coming close to ending his career. He didn't even want to do one more fight. He wanted Brock Lesnar. And I think the fact Stipe Miocic just woke up every day, thought about Daniel Cormier. He's very angry. You know, he looks at himself in the mirror every morning. And he's just thinking about one thing. You know, he's had a kid. And this guy is just, he wants to be the best. He wants his belt back. And, you know, I'm going to have to look at this fight and say, I'm gonna say that what happens is what most people anticipated from the first one. I'm gonna say Stipe does connect this time, and he puts out Daniel Cormier and potentially shows him the door. But like I said, Daniel Cormier could TKO him, could submit him, could win a decision. He's a conditioning animal. But this time I'm gonna swap. I'm gonna say Stipe Miocic TKOs Daniel Cormier in round number 1.
Okay. All right. And there's our fourth disagreement. And it is minus 150 for Daniel Cormier, plus 120 for Stipe. I think that's totally fine.
That's totally fine.
Yep. And so before we sign off here, besides the main event, your fight of the night, I'll say Yoel and Costa for me.
What am I going to say here? I'm going to say Nate Diaz and Anthony Pettis gets crazy.
Pretty safe. That's pretty safe. Yeah, I will say it won't be Hannah Cifers versus Jody Esquibel.
Good one.
That is a horrendous fight, and I don't care what anybody says. But great card here. I'm looking forward to season 2 here, reigning defending champion Leyton, and we'll see. We got 4 disagreements here, and I think we're in for a very, very good card. This is one of the best main cards of the year for sure.
Great card.
They definitely, and I don't mind the prelims either, but that's nothing new. But anything else you guys say before we sign off here?
I just want to sign off and say I'm happy to be reigning defending champ, and you're probably going to be in the lead after this card. Maybe, you know, I have 2 females who are underdogs, but you know what? I'm feeling confident, and I think we're both going to have more correct picks this season than last season. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And anybody who's been there, regardless of when you showed up, we appreciate you all. Enter the giveaway. If you're leaving a comment, enter the giveaway also. You can even put it in your comment. I don't care. But just, you know, it's just, if you're going to comment, might as well enter the giveaway. 5 fights, one of which is the main event. Pick the method and round for each one. That's it. So, and who wins. That's all. So I appreciate you all. And, I will be recording the Contender Series here coming up, solo edition. So good luck with that if you listen to that. But appreciate you all, and I'm out for to do a little prep here. Peace.
Peace.